Demons where you belong.
When He-Man and the Masters of the Universe first aired, it became one of the most popular kid-friendly animated shows of the 1980s. It resonated with fans all over the world as they watched He-Man and his team constantly battle the evil forces of Skeletor episode after episode. It has fantasy, life lessons, creatures with supernatural powers, battles of good versus evil, basically everything one expects from an animated series specifically targeted for kids. This show has defined childhood for so many people all over the world. Other than that, it has a plethora of extremely dangerous characters with supernatural power. Some of them use their supernatural powers for noble purposes. Others use them for nefarious and self-serving purposes. In this video, we'll talk about the 6 most dangerous creatures in the universe of the Masters of the Universe. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right in. Granomir, one of the oldest, wisest, and most powerful beings on the planet of Eternia, Granomir is not to be messed with. Whenever Granomir appears on screen, we see He-Man showing immense respect for him. When one of his noted adversaries, Dragon Shadowwing, is revived in the episode titled The Return of Granomir, we see that event eventually culminating in a fight between Granomir and Shadowwing, in which Granomir defeats Shadowwing by casting only a few spells on him and sending him to the realm of demons. It doesn't take a lot of effort to defeat someone as powerful as Shadowwing. An ancient dragon who lived with other dragons of his kind at Darksmoke, Granomir was involved in conflicts against humans thousands of years ago. But along the way, a settlement took place between humans and dragons that made them stop fighting each other. As a result, Granomir and all the other dragons of his kind agreed to live in Darksmoke that was isolated from the rest of the planet of Eternia. Granomir is over 10,000 years old, and he doesn't have an optimistic view of human beings. However, his thoughts about humans began to change when He-Man successfully helps him by helping a young dragon win the love of his life. He speaks in a very refined and sophisticated accent, possessing intelligence and insight. Granomir is one of the few dragons of Darksmoke who appears in the animated series, as dragons of his kind don't prefer to mingle with human beings. He himself admits in the series that he doesn't like to be bothered too much. The kind of mutual respect He-Man and Granomir develop for each other in the show is quite admirable. It's a good thing that Granomir is kind of benevolent, unlike Shadowwing, and in the animated series, we see him using his strengths for noble and helpful purposes. He knows how to play the long game instead of giving in to impulsivity and tactless behavior. Few creatures in the universe of the Masters of the Universe can rival his strength, insight, and wisdom. Mulcrum. You must have heard the saying, appearances can be deceptive. But in the case of Mulcrum, appearances are not deceptive. He looks as strong, terrifying, and powerful as he actually is. He has horns, a centaur-like body with a doggish tail, tendrils for arms, and blonde hair. His screams are enough to intimidate and scare someone, but his terrifying appearance dials that up to several notches. He nearly conquered the planet of Eternia ages ago, and in order to stop that from happening, the Elders of Eternia captured him and imprisoned him within a crystal prison. In the episode titled Reign of the Monster, Skeletor frees Mulcrum from his crystal prison, specifically for the purposes of capturing Castle Grayskull. It takes a lot of effort for He-Man and his team to defeat Mulcrum. As you can see in the episode, it's far from an easy battle. What makes Mulcrum extremely powerful and dangerous is the fact that he has the capability to destroy Castle Grayskull from where He-Man gets his powers. And of course, the opportunistic antagonist Skeletor doesn't shy away from using that to his advantage. Mulcrum is a legitimate threat, not just to He-Man and his team, but to the entire planet of Eternia as well. His tendrils are extremely powerful, and he uses them to whip, capture, and constrict people pretty easily. In one instance, he uses his tendrils to grab hold of He-Man, and when Teela's mother comes to rescue He-Man in the form of Zor, Mulcrum uses his other tendril to hit Zor, and he knocks it to the ground. Although eventually Mulcrum gets defeated by He-Man and his team, we can clearly see that winning the battle against Mulcrum for them was far from a piece of cake, as he didn't give up the fight that easily. He gave He-Man and his team a run for their money. Also, let me reiterate, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is a kid-friendly show. When it was first released in 1983 as an animated television series, it was specifically intended for children. So, most of the characters and the overall structure of the show have been designed keeping the target audience in mind. That being said, Mulcrum definitely stands out, as his appearance and behavioral traits can terrify not just children, but but adults as well. His physicality is a major aspect of what makes him extremely intimidating, terrifying, and dangerous. Colossor. When Skeletor brings a giant stone statue called Colossor to life in the episode titled Colossor Awakes, Colossor becomes a legitimate threat, as he's ordered by Skeletor to go and capture Castle Grayskull. When he reaches Castle Grayskull, he encounters He-Man and his team. Man-at-Arms ties his feet together while Orko is trying to distract him. Taking advantage of the situation, He-Man pushes him to the ground. Even after his fall, he doesn't seem to give up and reaches for the door to Castle Grayskull. In order to stop Colossor, He-Man punches him in the feet and completely breaks him down into pieces, literally dismantling him on the spot. Colossor is shown as an extremely intimidating figure in the show, his massive size and immense strength causing the audience to believe that he actually might be a legitimate threat to He-Man and his team. The most intimidating thing about Colossor is his appearance. A giant stone statue who has come to life, he seems invulnerable. He looks like nothing can faze him. Of course, all those perceptions get eliminated the moment He-Man completely dismantles him by punching only one time in his feet. But still, Colossor came pretty close to Castle Grayskull, and the stakes were extremely high in that moment, as this massive stone statue could have easily destroyed the Castle Grayskull or made way for Skeletor to capture it, threatening the existence of the entire planet of Eternia, if it weren't for He-Man and his team. Bakul. Bakul is a sea demon who looks scary and funny at the same time in an oddly intimidating way. Extremely huge in stature, his punches are extremely powerful, and in the episode titled Teela's Quest, you could see that He-Man's brute physical strength alone can't beat Bakul, and He-Man and his team have to employ a lot of tricks to defeat him. First, they destroy the pearl that Merman used to control Bakul. After that, Bakul turns against Merman, along with fighting against He-Man and his team as well. During that fight, He-Man destroys the icy mountain on which Bakul is latched onto, and then we see Bakul getting crushed under the remnants of that mountain. Imagine if Bakul had employed as many tricks as He-Man and his team, along with the level of sheer physical strength he already possessed. If that were the case, there's a possibility that he could have posed a way bigger threat to them. The only difference here is that he didn't use his brain as much, and that cost him his potential victory. Without the strategic approach taken by He-Man and his team, he would have been a legitimate threat to them. His impulsivity makes him extremely unpredictable and dangerous though, as you can see in this episode. Bakul is the opposite of what you would consider a cold and calculating villain who watches every step before making a decision or taking an action. You can clearly see in the fight that took place in Teela's Quest. In that sequence, Bakul doesn't think, plan, strategize, or calculate what he's gonna do next. He's just punching, smashing, and destroying whatever comes in his way, hell-bent on causing as much damage as possible. Spirit of Evil. Resembling a living, breathing, triangular fire with a face, Spirit of Evil is evil itself, as he states to He-Man and his team in the episode titled Wizard of Stone Mountain. Even in his case, brute physical strength is not enough to stop him from achieving his goals. In order to defeat him, everything in this world that evil stands against needs to come in the way. It can be true love, or it can be the inherent goodness of someone as noble as He-Man, or it can be the courage in the face of evil, or hope, or kindness. In the animated series, the Spirit of Evil refuses to fight He-Man, as he realizes that the latter's goodness is as powerful as the former's darkness. Spirit of Evil states to He-Man and his team that he's the master of fear and destroyer of hope, the enemy of mankind throughout the universe. I don't think it would be too far-fetched to claim that by stating that, the Spirit of Evil is not just holding himself responsible for every bad thing that happens in the world and causes suffering, he's embracing that identity without any apologies. I mean, he's the devil himself, clearly intending to come for not just people's lives, but also their souls, as you can see in that episode. He wants to eliminate all goodness from the world, all the things that make human life worth living. A lot of antagonists, in their own twisted ways, have a tendency to develop a moral or rational justification for what they're doing. But Spirit of Evil, on the other hand, holds no such justifications. He is pure, unadulterated darkness and evil, without any apologies or explanations, through and through. Locus. Locus, a shape-shifting sphinx-like demonic entity, is extremely cunning and manipulative. In the episode titled Wizard of Stone Mountain, he exploits Malek's unrequited love for Teela by manipulating him into believing he can win over Teela, but only if he bargains with Locus and pays a price for it, a high price. In order to get a hold of and trap both Malek and Teela, he destroys crops in front of Malek, despite Malek's protestations. and then he changes into a human form and goes to Tila, posing as a farmer. He tells Tila that Malik destroyed not just his crops, but also wiped out his entire village with his magical powers. She tells Locus, who's posing as a farmer, that she can't believe what she just heard from him. Locus further adds that he did it out of unrequited love for her. Tila, after listening to this story, becomes extremely sad, shocked, and disturbed, and she immediately goes to He-Man, telling him about the trouble in the village caused by Malik. Locus is extremely elevated and happy with how his plan is working successfully in his favor. Later on, Malik even kidnaps Tila under the influence of Locus. Tila rightfully protests and calls Malik out, stating to him that he can't force her to fall in love with him. While that conversation is happening, Locus reappears and tells Malik that his time is up and his soul will be taken from him. He tells Tila and Malik that they both fell into his trap. Of course, later on, the spirit of evil shows up, a lot of things happen, and then he curses and lashes out at Locus, making him vanish by casting a spell on it. The spirit of evil himself retreats from the battle against He-Man and his team, but all that doesn't take away the damage Locus is potentially capable of. As you can see in this episode, Locus almost turned his plans into reality. Through his cunning, deceitful, and manipulative nature, he managed to trick both Tila and Malik. He knows how to exploit people's psychological weaknesses against them. He never shies away from taking advantage of people and their situations, weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and insecurities. One can't become too vulnerable in front of someone as cunning, manipulative, and deceitful as Locus.